Good evening, Mr. Bond fans, and welcome once again, where we're going to be talking about the latest Bond 26 news, namely that producer Barbara Broccoli has confirmed that filming of that next Bond adventure is at least 2 years away. But before we get into that, I just have to go and do something first. Just bear with me a moment. Well, now that that's off my chest, let's get talking about the news, shall we? Yes, I'm of course referring to an article that recently appeared in Deadline. There was an event where Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson were presented with BFI fellowships. It was a kind of swanky event at Claridge's in London, and of course the subject of question was obviously focused on, well, what's happening next with Bond, and Barbara Broccoli did offer up some interesting comments. Nobody is in the running, she disclosed. We're working out where to go with him. We're talking that through. There isn't a script, and we can't come up with one until we decide how we're going to approach the next film, because really, it's a reinvention of Bond. We're reinventing who he is, and that takes time. I'd say that filming is at least 2 years away. So I think that there are really two things to take away from this article. I'm going to talk about the one that struck me first, which was obviously how long it's going to take for us to get the next Bond film. In a lot of ways, this is kind of no new news, because it doesn't feel like it's been that long since I last did a vlog where Barbara Broccoli was talking about how it's going to take some time before they get around to deciding what to do next. And obviously, it is about far more than just who is going to be in the tuxedo there, who's going to be writing it, who's going to be directing it, and in the past those creative roles have often been filled, or mostly filled, before an actor is cast in the part. So inevitably there's going to be a lot of decision-making going on as to what style of filmmaker and writer that they're going to go for, because that is presumably going to influence the rest of the next actor's entire tenure. So in a way, her saying it's going to take some time is kind of like a no-brainer. The thing that I think struck me, and a lot of people reading this, is that she specified at least 2 years. At least 2 years before filming begins, so that puts us already in 2024. Summer 2024? And then if they were to start filming, presumably that would be for a 2025 release. So 2025 is kind of the best case scenario release year for the next Bond film. I certainly don't want this to be complainy fan complaints because they can't get thing quicker. But it is of course slightly disappointing to hear that, particularly with how sparse the filmography has been of late. What the comments imply is that the conversations surrounding the direction of the next Bond are certainly they're still at the conceptual level. There's no talk. I mean, she specifies that there isn't a script, but are they talking to writers? Are they talking to directors? I guess that they're keeping their cards close to their chest here, and I don't doubt that thinking of what the new era of Bond might be would indeed take a lot of time, and it's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. But considering just how long it's been since No Time to Die was even supposed to come out, it had its release postponed for nearly 2 years, and maybe there were conversations going on in that time. I definitely don't want to sit here and insinuate that nothing has happened, but maybe it hasn't, I don't know. And as much as I do love the notion that Bond is this, unique cinematic beast, this is kind of, this is what you get when you have essentially an hereditary monarchy at the top of the thing. You're essentially waiting for the family to make up their own minds and decide what they're gonna do. And that can be, obviously a little frustrating when you just kind of want to, particularly for myself, and I know a lot of other Bond fans, I think are very keen to just get going, because the Craig era was so long, it was such a big chunk of the history of the franchise by the end of it, 15 years from beginning to end, in the end. And I think people are ready for something very different, which does actually bring me to the second thing that I want to talk about in this article, because I feel like the quote, "reinventing him," has become the main talking point from this article, and I have to admit that when I first read the article, it didn't even register with me. I just kind of took it for granted, because every time a new actor comes into the series, it is a reinvention. So I did kind of read it, and at most I may have just kind of written off as, okay, well that's a fairly generic buzzword to describe the start of a new Bond's tenure, so I didn't really pay that much attention to it. But I was surprised, like, reading a lot of, reaction articles and whatnot, where people, it felt like there were like two kind of camps of some people being like, yes, hooray, finally, reinvention, can't wait for it, and another camp sort of being like, oh, I'm not sure about this whole reinvention thing. Which I have to say, I didn't get either of those reactions, because there's nothing tangible there. The series has always reinvented itself, and it's such a vague word, and the context it's being used in. Like, to be perfectly honest, if reinvention means we're going to do something very different to what we did with the Craig era, hooray, sign me up for that. I am ready for something, different to what we've been getting for the last 15 years. But I think from what I was reading, people were just kind of interpreting that as a reinvention from, like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's hard because you can't look at the whole 60-year filmography as like one block, because, as I say, it has reinvented itself many times. That's how it has stayed relevant over the years. So, reinvention, yeah, I was kind of surprised if they didn't use that buzzword when talking about the next tenure. So I guess my advice regarding that would be to kind of, keep your powder dry, depending on whatever instinctive reaction you have to that word, because I don't think there's anything particularly tangible or it's not something that I can react to, because I don't think it means much at this. I'd be more surprised if she came out and said, well, what me and Michael have talked about, what we're going to do is exactly the same thing that we have been doing over again. Just one more thing that I want to comment on, actually, about the event, because Rafe Fiennes and Naomi Harris were there, and they were the ones presenting the awards to Barbara and Michael, and Fiennes did have a little joke, noting that the two producers killed Bond in No Time to Die, and he joked that Naomi and I are the people to fix it. You find him and we'll train him. And I just like that little, like, he's still like, you can still have me back. Judi Dench existed in two different timelines, so he can come back when they reinvent it with a new Bond. The guest list, the reported guest list was quite interesting. It's like, obviously you had people involved in the films. Mark Forster, who directed Quantum of Solace, was apparently there, which I find interesting, considering how they've kind of, in that, the documentary that was released before No Time to Die, Broccoli, Craig, like, they all kind of, didn't speak of Quantum in the highest of regards, so I was, surprised that maybe he would be coming along to it. Other people who were there, though, included Jamie Bell, who has been, rumoured as being in contention for the Bond role, so that's interesting. And then filmmakers Terry Gilliam and Edgar Wright were there, and those are two directors who, my god, would I love to see what they would do with James Bond. One thing's for sure, though, if there are people who are thrilled about hearing that we're at least 2 years away from filming, it's the bookies, because that means we're going to have 2 more years of the odds of Idris Elba, Henry Cavill, and Tom Hardy potentially becoming James Bond. I mentioned this on Twitter, like, Idris Elba could be 88 years old, he could be on his deathbed, and he would still be, like, ranked, like, 3rd or 4th in the odds on the bookies thing. It's just, it's crazy. So that's my 2 cents on this latest Bond news, or lack of news is perhaps the more apt way of saying it. I feel like this 60th anniversary year is very much a victory lap as far as the series is concerned. It's really nice here in the UK. The films are in the cinemas again. It's really nice seeing even films that aren't played in cinemas at all, like Diamonds Are Forever. Like, it's just nice, like, knowing that they are on the big screen somewhere, which is really nice. What I think is gonna be interesting is the next couple of years. Like, obviously we have the game, there are books, all, coming out. That reality TV series on Amazon is apparently happening, so the Bond brand will have be making appearances. But once the 60th anniversary is kind of all done and dusted, I wonder if that's when they're gonna really kick it into overdrive and get going with the next one. It'll be interesting to see. So please do let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, particularly if you're like me and you were just, like, totally, like, the reinvention comment just went completely over your head, because I don't know if I'm the only one. Just like, yeah, whatever. Also below you can find links to subscribe to this channel, and you can also click the Mrs. Bell notification bell to stay super up to date on future video uploads. And as well as those things, also below you can find links to my various social media pages, including my Patreon page, my Facebook page, my Twitter page, my Instagram page, and my Letterboxd page. So if you are on any of those platforms, please feel free to find me on them. Wonder if I should get TikTok. I feel like I should add another thing to this list. And with all that being said, and until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.